week, I'm very pleased to say I'm joined in the studio by Tom Burke, who is the Environmental Policy Advisor and co-founder of E3G, the climate change think tank. Look, thank you very much. When I look at stats like this, satellites showing since the early 2000s, when 3% of the world's land caught fire, that is down on that. Polar bear population's up, apparently. And I look at it and think, why are we so hysterical?
Well, I agree with you about some people being hysterical, but you're my prime candidate. Oh. What you've just largely recorded is a bunch of stuff that aren't facts.
Really?
They just aren't facts, no. You show me where you've got them and I'll tell you why they're wrong.
OK, well, the Royal Society.
Well, which was the fact it said?
Well, they've got all of these here. So
No. You've got what you've got in front of you is the script that says somebody said this.
No,
you don't have the document in front. You've read what the Royal Society says.
I've done the research before the show. I'm not going to let you derail this conversation because this is what people like you do, which is instead of answering my question.
Why are you attacking me?
I'm not now.
Yeah, but you are. You're talking about people like me as if I'm an eco-zealot.
No, because what you will try to do is instead of having the conversation, you will try to derail it. So answer me this.
But you're again talking to my motive.
Why was there such a focus on wildfires being the cause and climate change being the cause of the recent fires in Greece when actually it was arson?
Well, because actually, you know what you didn't explain to people, which you should have explained to people, is we've always had arsonists, and arsonists have always called fires, and there's nothing new about that. So suddenly discovering that the Greeks discovered that some people lit fires is absolutely not news. The fact that those fires took place all over the whole of the northern Mediterranean and the
Would they have started without people lighting them?
Well, they'd have started for lots of reasons without people lighting, as fires often do.
But they didn't, did they?
Well, I don't know what started all the fires. Lightning starts lots of fires. Fires can start because people have broken a piece of glass and it's just caught.
So are you willing to blame the recent wildfires in Greece on climate change as opposed to the arsonists who lit them?
I'm not blaming anything other than climate change for the scale of the wildfires that ruin so many people's holidays, wreck their holidays, and will go on wrecking holidays if we don't do something about climate change. Now, why do fires start? There are lots of reasons why fires start.
These were with gasoline and lighters, weren't they?
But what was really different about this, and which the BBC was actually right about, was to show you maps of the scale of those fires, because that was totally unprecedented. Nobody had seen fires like this across the Mediterranean before we saw it this year, which is not a surprise, because it turned out that July was the hottest month recorded anywhere
They made
ever.
Britain molten lava red when it was about 14 degrees.
Well, I don't know what you were looking at, but I've seen the maps all through the BBC explaining why we've got the worst July I can remember, frankly. We've had a terrible July. I've hated it. It's been wet all the time. And the explanation for that is because of where the jet stream is going, blocking out highs from coming and giving us good weather.
A decade ago, environmentalists were talking about Australia's magnificent Great Barrier Reef. The Guardian, as I said there, wrote an obituary for it. And then this year, scientists revealed 2/3 of the Great Barrier Reef shows the highest coral cover ever seen since records began in 1985.
Well, first of all, I would never justify the Guardian from making mistakes any more than anybody else.
But what about that, though? That was hysteria, wasn't it?
I haven't read the account you've got. You mentioned in your monologue, you mentioned Bjorn Lomborg. I've known Bjorn Lomborg for about 40 years. Think about whatever you get from Bjorn. You always look at all the things he didn't tell you as well as the things he's picked up. And you can make almost any story sound plausible if you pick and choose the bits and leave out all the bits that actually make you think
It's quite a good indication that it's not dying, though, isn't it, if it's got the highest coral cover?
Honestly, I'm not a climate reef spectrum. I hear people say that it's under stress. I hear reports, by the way, about Florida, the reefs in Florida, which are now dying. I don't know whether they're true or not.
But it's hysterical, isn't it? I mean, again, we've got things like Al Gore's terrifying movie, An Inconvenient Truth. The polar bear numbers have been increasing from 5 to 10,000 in the 1960s to 26,000 now.
Patrick, is there exaggeration in the media about everything, including climate change? Yes, there is. But the people you should blame for that are the editors who print those documents.
But this hysteria then leads to government policy, which then hits taxpayers in the pocket, and it is ruining people. And people need to be more honest and coming out and saying, hang on a minute, when you are confronted with facts like this, instead of telling me, oh, well, you haven't really read this document, when actually, shockingly for you, I clearly have, and you haven't really got answers for it, people are going skint because of this kind of hysteria.
Let me give you an example of just exactly what I mean, very current right today. Exactly on the theme you just picked up. Philip Hammond, former Chancellor of the Exchequer, telling you that it's going to cost us £1 trillion and that's going to be awful and terrible for people's bills to deal with climate change. He doesn't tell you that, by the way, in spending that £1 trillion, we'll save more than £1 trillion in the money we'd have to spend on buying fossil fuels and all the rest. He doesn't tell you that because it doesn't suit his story. So you want to be careful that you've got all the facts and not just the ones that suit the case.
In the 1920s, about 500,000 people were killed by weather disasters annually. That's in the 1920s. Whereas in the last decade, the death toll averaged just over 18,000. We are not dying as a result of climate change.
Well, I didn't say we were.
But loads of people are.
Well,
Wait,
hang on a minute.
No, I will not have this. Because this is why people listen to Just Stop Oil.
Well,
this is why people accept things like criminal damage on the street. This is why people accept things like you're going to have to get a heat pump. You're going to have to sell your car. You're going to go skiing. Because we think we're going to die. We're told we're going to die.
Well, I have to tell you,
are dying.
I have a much more confidence in the public of this country than you seem to have. And the only reason... The only reason people are hearing what's being said is because editors print it. Well, if editors didn't print it, you wouldn't hear
policy.
it.
What happens all too often is editors print government policy and also opposition policy, the Labour Party policy, and it's because they are listening to climate alarmists, I would argue.
Well, right now, everybody, Climate Change Committee, Institute of Economic Affairs, the International Energy Authority, are telling us we're not doing what we need to do on climate change. So if they are making climate policy, they're not doing a very good job of it.
All right, look, thank you very much. I have actually thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been a good way to start the show, and for what it's worth as well, we were getting on all right before the camera started rolling, so there we are. Thank you very, very much. Tremendous to have you on the show. Tom Burke there, of course, the environmental policy advisor and co-founder of the E3G, the climate change think tank.